welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing a video on how I get my perfect eyeshadow. All the tips and tricks that I use, all the different quirks and techniques that I always include in my eyeshadow routine are included in this video. So get ready, it's very informational, very detailed, and very up close in your face. Like my eyeballs are literally gonna be so close to you. I'm so sorry that I didn't make this video a lot sooner. I realized that I have been on YouTube for almost 2 years and I have not done a video on how I do my eyeshadow and how I blend and all that stuff, like a very detailed video on how I do my eyeshadow. So I'm kind of ashamed of myself. I'm sorry, but I finally did it and I'm really happy with this video. I made sure to include everything that I know about eyeshadow. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and let's get into the tutorial. So before we get started, I just want to explain that I usually do my brows and my eyes before I do my face makeup, just to prevent any fallout from going on my foundation. But for the sake of this video, I just did my face first and also did my brows before. I like to do my brows before I get started with my eyeshadow because it kind of helps keep a frame for my eyeshadow. I just feel like it helps me a little bit, and it's just nice to have the brows done and not have to go over them after you've already spent so much time doing your eyeshadow. So we're gonna get up nice and close for this video so you can see everything that I'm doing. First of all, I like to start by concealing my eyelids. You can use eyeshadow primer if you want. My favorite one is the Urban Decay Primer Potion, but lately I've just been using concealer because it covers up my veins a lot better than any primer does. As you can see, I have very dark eyelids and I have a lot of veins going on, so I like to cover that up to help the eyeshadow pop a little bit more. So my favorite concealer to use is the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. It's the most high coverage concealer that I've ever used, and it's also very, very long lasting. So you do not need much of this. I like to just do 2 bloops. And then I either blend it in with my finger or a beauty blender. Today I'm going to use a beauty blender. So after I do that, I like to set the concealer right away before it creases with some sort of loose translucent powder. Today I'm using the Cover FX loose powder. It's pretty much the only powder that I use right now, but I just like to use a loose powder because I feel like it sets it a lot better and a lot more secure, especially when you use it with a damp beauty blender. It just feels like it's more set and secure when you're pressing that shadow into the concealer. This is a super, super important step for putting on your eyeshadow because it helps make the skin smooth for the shadows to be applied. If the skin was tacky or greasy, it would be very, very hard for the eyeshadow to go on smoothly. It would go on very patchy and just not be as easy to apply. And then if you do like to do your face makeup before your eye makeup, like a lot of people do, you can take some more of that loose powder and go ahead and press that underneath your eyes before you get started with the eyeshadow. That way, if any shadow falls onto the loose powder, you can take a brush and just wipe it away and it won't mess up your foundation at all. It looks a little bit funny when you're doing it and it's just like sitting there on your face, but it really, really makes a difference. So after I set my eyelids, I like to curl my eyelashes right away. I know that seems a little bit weird, but I like to get that out of the way so that I don't mess up my eyeshadow with the eyelash curler or the eyeliner that I just applied. It just makes me feel a little bit better knowing that my eyelashes are done and out of the way before I get started with my shadow. So now to get started with the actual eyeshadow, I like to go ahead and take a cream color eyeshadow or like a white shadow and also a big fluffy crease brush. Lately my favorite has been the Luxie 205 tapered brush. I love Luxie brushes because they're all cruelty free. They're just really, really good brushes. It's hard to find good synthetic cruelty-free brushes. So I like to take a little bit of that cream eyeshadow and just go ahead and place it all over my lid. This is going to dust away any excess pressed powder that we put on before, and it's also going to lighten up the area a little bit for the shadows to come. And then the next step is to choose a good transition color. A good transition color is so important because this will help you blend all your colors together and not make it look harsh and choppy. I like to go with a lighter brown, something that's a little bit more on the warmer side. It depends on what kind of look you're doing, but I always go for the more warmer browns as the transition colors, just because that always tends to be the best type of blending color. One of my favorite transition colors is by Makeup Geek, and it's called Creme Brulee. It's just a nice, light, neutral-ish, warmish brown. Some of my favorite eyeshadows are by Makeup Geek and Anastasia Beverly Hills. They're both pretty similar. They blend out the best, and they're all just so easy to work with. They are a little bit pricey, especially the Anastasia Beverly Hills, but they are really worth it, especially their foiled eyeshadows. So I'm just gonna take that same brush that I used before, dip it into the shadow, and then I like to go ahead and tap off the excess. I always tap off the excess. If you go right in without tapping it off, you're gonna have an overload of product and it's gonna be like so blotchy in the area that you start to blend out. So always make sure to tap off your brush. Before I get started with blending, I like to kind of tilt my head back a little bit, hold a mirror below my face like this, and look down while I'm applying the shadow. I like to start in the outer corner, going in kind of like a circular motion, and then I'll work my way to the center doing that same motion, and then eventually I'll turn it to windshield wiper motions. I'll start in the same area and then I'll go ahead and kind of sweep outwards and then go back in to the circular motions and then windshield wiper motions. I like to go back and forth, just making sure everything is really blended out well. You may have to go back into this color a few times on your eye to build up the amount of color that you want. It's always best to start with less amount of color and building your way up instead of putting too much on at first and not knowing what to do with it. And then after I'm done with the crease color, I like to go back in with a cream color. By the way, this is the ABH single eyeshadow in Blanc. I like to go back in with that cream color and start at my brow bone and then kind of work its way down and blending that transition color out. This is a really good trick to blending out any eyeshadows. You want to get a cream eyeshadow, a good one that works for you, and use it as an extra blending tool. You want your eyeshadows to look like a gradient, starting from light to the eyebrow, going darker into the crease, going darker into the outer V, making sure that it's really well blended out. It always depends on what type of look you're doing, but usually it's going from light to dark. Now working towards the darker colors. Right now I'm using another Makeup Geek eyeshadow. This one's called Brownie Points, and I'm going to take a pencil brush. This one is from Makeup Addiction Cosmetics. I like to use pencil brushes for the tighter crease part and the outer V, just because it's a lot easier to work with, and then I'll go back with that fluffier crease brush and blend it out. So I'm going to go ahead and take some on my pencil brush, tap it off, and then I'm going to start on the outer V, going back and forth, kind of working in that one area. Trying to incorporate it in that transition color that we used before. Once it's nicely placed in the outer V, I'll kind of bring it into the crease area a little bit too, bringing it closer into the inner corner, doing back and forth motions, circular motions, and windshield wiper motions. You want to do different motions like that because if you go in the same motion the entire time, the eyeshadow is only going to go in one direction and not blend out as well. So you want to make sure that you're going in a bunch of different directions so that the eyeshadow looks nice and blurred out. Once you have that nicely placed on there, you're going to want to go back in with this transition color and the big fluffy brush and just go ahead and blend everything out again, doing circular motions and going back into windshield wiper. And then once that's done, you can go back in with the cream color if you don't think it's blended out enough. Go back in with that on the big fluffy brush and then start out your brow bone and bring it down a little bit just to blend everything out and make it all look seamless. When you go in between colors also and you're using the same brush like I do, I like to kind of just swirl it on a piece of fabric. I usually swirl it on my sweatpants. I know that's kind of weird, but I always wear sweatpants when I'm doing makeup, and I always use them to wipe off my makeup. You can have a towel next to you if you just lightly wipe off the shadow so it doesn't mix the colors together and screw you up over time. Then we're gonna go in with the darkest color, and this is the ABH single eyeshadow in Smoke. It's just a very rich dark brown. And we're gonna take the pencil brush again, dip it into the shadow, and tap off the excess. So I'm gonna do kind of the same thing that I did with the last darkest color that we used, but I'm going to start by tapping it on this outer V area, kind of in the area that I want it to be focused in, and then I'm going to start swirling it in circular motions, going back and forth, and then going into windshield wiper motions in the crease. Once that's where you want it to be, go ahead and go back in with that transition color and that big fluffy brush and just blend everything out once again. Then when you have all the colors that you like on your lid, I like to go in with some sort of shimmery eyeshadow and place it on my lid in that plain part. One of my favorite foiled or shimmery eyeshadows, whatever you want to call it, is by Makeup Geek, and this one is called Starry Eyed. It's just such a beautiful color that works on everyone. And what I like to do to apply foiled or shimmery eyeshadows on the eyelid is I actually take my ring finger, dip it into the eyeshadow, and I'll have about that much on my finger, and I just go ahead and I apply it straight onto my lid with my finger. I have always applied shimmery eyeshadows with my finger over brushes every single time because it works so much better than any other brush. It puts so much product onto your lid and it just feels a lot more secure. So I like to put that on about 1/2 of my eyelid, the inner part of my eyelid. And once that's on, I'll go ahead and wipe off that pencil brush, and then I'll just go in and blend the foiled eyeshadow in with the matte eyeshadows, using circular and back and forth motions, and then I'll go over to the inner corner just to blend that edge as well. So everything's looking really, really good. What I like to do to finish off any eyeshadow look is to take your favorite brow bone highlight. I like to take a light, less shimmery shadow than the one on my lid. This one's called Shimma Shimma, and it's by Makeup Geek. I like to take these colors on a flat concealer brush. This one is the 528 concealer brush by Luxie, and I just go ahead and dip it into the shadow, front and back, tap it off, and then I'll put a little bit on my brow bone. And I like to put some on my inner corner as well. Once all those colors are applied, you can see that there's a little bit of fallout on this powder, so I just go ahead and take a big fluffy brush. This is the 520 Tapered Face brush by Luxie, and I'll just go ahead and sweep that away. And there is no fallout. See how dandy that is? So one last trick for those of you who like a sharp edge on your eyeshadow. If you want, you can always use tape before you start applying eyeshadow. Go ahead and place a piece of tape right there. Before you apply the eyeshadow, do your eyeshadow like you normally would. Take the tape off and you would have a nice crisp line. I personally like to do my eyes before my face just so I can take a concealer brush and some concealer and wipe away that shadow to make it nice and crisp. But since I already have powder on my face, I can't go ahead and reapply concealer to it. So I'm going to take my beauty blender with a little bit of that powder on it, and I'm going to take the edge of that beauty blender and go ahead and create a nice crisp line with the powder. And then go ahead and take a fluffy brush and just wipe away that powder. And that will give you a nice crisp line. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this eye. I'm gonna add a little bit of eyeliner and put on some mascara and falsies. If you wanna see how I do my false lashes, I will link that video down below. I have a whole video telling you my tips and tricks of how I put on my false lashes. Okay, now for the lower lash line. I put on some black eyeliner in my waterline and smudged it out on my lower lash line. And now I'm going to take this dark brown that we used on our outer V with that same pencil brush, tap it in, and then tap it off. And I'm going to smudge that black eyeliner out with this brown eyeshadow. Just getting really close to the lower lash line. I always like to start with a pencil brush on the lower lash line just to get it really, really close. And then I'll go in with a big fluffy brush to blend everything out. And then to blend this color out, I take that transition color once again and that same big fluffy brush, tap it into that color, tap it off, and then I'll just go right below that eyeshadow and blend everything out. Just to make sure everything's smooth and not choppy. And that's pretty much all I do for the lower lash line, and then I'll just go ahead and add some mascara to my lower lashes. And that is pretty much it for my tips and tricks with how to get perfectly blended eyeshadow. These are all the tips and tricks that I use every single time I do an eye look like this, or any eye look really. No matter what colors I use, no matter what pattern I do, I always stick with this same routine. I hope this helped you guys out with your eyeshadow, and I hope you guys try this for yourselves. Just keep practicing, keep blending, and I promise it will come so easy to you. The trick is to just keep blending. Keep blending until it is perfect. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye, guys.
I used to walk these roads with you. Can't remember the last time I went without you.